Thank you very much, Mr. President. Allow me first to congratulate you for presiding over the work of the Council for this month. I would like also to welcome the presence as well as the participation of my friend, the Special Envoy, Bيدرسون. Mr. President, 9 years have passed since the beginning of the so-called Syrian crisis, which is in fact nothing but a barbaric and terrorist war waged by the governments of well-known states that have espoused the game of hegemony and sought to legalize interference in the affairs of Syria and other countries of our region, and the shedding of the blood of their peoples and looting their resources under false and fabricated pretexts. Needless to bring you back to the issue of Iraq and Libya and other countries. 9 years have passed where a wide range of weaponry have been employed against my country, be it large-scale information and media warfare, an investment in terrorism, the sponsorship of criminal takfiri organizations, direct military interventions, bombing, aggression, and occupation by the United States, France, UK, Turkey, and Israel, including the recent Israeli aggression 2 days ago, which killed 3 civilians and wounded 4 others. Or economic terrorism and collective punishment of the Syrian people through the imposition of unilateral coercive measures, all of which constitute a flagrant violation of international law and the provisions of the Charter of the United Nations, and the challenge to the mandate and resolutions of the Security Council and its ability to fulfill its responsibilities in maintaining international peace and security. Mr. President, we reiterate that we will not shy away from upholding the sovereignty, unity, and territorial integrity of our own country, Syria, no matter how intense the pressure is and how intensified the plots are. Furthermore, we will not abandon the liberation of our occupied territories, whether occupied by the United States, Turkey, Israel, or their affiliated terrorist organizations. We also stress that any presence of foreign military forces on the territory of the Syrian Arab Republic without the explicit consent of the Syrian government is an act of aggression and occupation and will be dealt with as such in accordance with our rights under international law. Mr. President, not only did the Turkish regime violate its commitments under Adana Agreement and Astana, Sochi, and Moscow understandings, and support the armed terrorist groups affiliated with many organizations that it transferred to Idlib province. It also shamelessly reinforced its illegitimate military presence on the territory of my country by allowing the access of convoys loaded with weapons and many other heavy equipments on a daily basis across the borders to support the armed terrorist groups. That was not all. The Turkish Minister of Defense recently infiltrated into the Syrian province of Idlib to hold meetings with leaders of some terrorist organizations operating there, with the aim of continuing the investment in terrorism and preparation of upcoming rounds of armed confrontations. In this regard, the representatives of countries participating in this meeting realize that many infantry units of the Turkish forces entered the occupied Syrian territories, and even Turkish air defense systems are being deployed. Turkey has reinforced its military forces in Idlib with Hawk anti-aircraft missiles that were sent from the United States of America in a clear violation of the international law and the United Nations Charter. The presence of Turkish air defense systems in the Syrian province of Idlib proves the real aims of Turkey, sustaining its occupation of the Syrian territories, especially that the sole aim of deploying these air defense systems on the occupied Syrian territories is undoubtedly destroying air targets such as planes and helicopters. This clearly means that these missiles will not be used against the radical terrorist groups that are in fact allies of the Turkish regime. My delegation warns against the dangerous and grave consequences of if these Turkish air defense systems fall into the hands of the terrorist organizations operating in Idlib, such as Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, Hayat Hurras al-Din, and the Turkestan Islamic Party in Syria. They are all affiliated to the Turkish regime. Mr. President, for years, the Turkish regime has recruited tens of thousands of terrorists from Central Asia, the Caucasus, Turkmen, Uyghurs, and others, and brought them to my country. Yet many theoreticians at this council and the secretariat have been color-blinded, as they have not been referring to these terrorist activities in any of their reports or briefings. The Turkish regime is now expanding its sponsorship of terrorism by recruiting foreign and Syrian terrorists to fight in Libya, for tempting monthly pays and transporting thousands of terrorists by Turkish aircraft to Libya without deterrence or accountability. The world's media have been flooded with images of hundreds of terrorists that Erdogan transported to Libya and were killed there. My European colleagues in this council know very well the magnitude of the threat that this Turkish behavior poses to the security of Europe and the world. But their NATO alliance with Turkey has prompted them to impose silence of the grave on the Security Council, therefore limiting its ability to fulfill its mandate. In this context, and in order to maintain the credibility of the Security Council and respect the international support of Moscow agreement, both political and military Turkish leaderships must focus on implementing this agreement instead of evading their responsibilities of effecting it. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the terrorist groups took advantage of the calm period following Moscow agreement and the international concern of combating coronavirus pandemic in order to reorganize their forces with the main support of the American and Turkish occupation forces. In mid-April, the leadership of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, Al-Nusra Front, announced that it reorganized its forces and formed 3 new brigades in preparation for upcoming confrontations in northwest Syria. This reaffirms the necessity that this Council should commit states to stop supporting terrorism, as well as the absolute priority of supporting the efforts of the Syrian state in fighting terrorism and eradicating this tumor from the Syrian body in order to complete the restoration of security and stability and achieving the most hoped Syrian owned and led solution without any foreign interference. I thank you very much, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of the Syrian Republic for his statement. There are no more names inscribed in the speakers list today, so Nothing else. The meeting is adjourned.